The layout for the podcast is very clear. The examiner has defined what are the areas you need to cover. So it's very important you cover each one of the areas with specific focus. But you have to understand the final objective of this podcast. After talking for 5 minutes, your examiner has to be very clear of 3 to 5 points about your company. So it's very important you emphasize those and highlight them in a way that the examiner will remember as you finish your podcast. Now in this, one of the key things is to understand the size of the organization. So when you're talking about the size of the organization, it's important to compare your size with a competition so that somebody knows whether you are the largest with regard to, example, if it's a hotel, with regard to the number of rooms, with regard to sales, with regard to number of employees. So you can compare Cinnamon Grand in the form of room numbers as well as its revenue or staff against Kingsbury and show you are twice the size of Kingsbury or you are 1.5 times with regard to staff. So it's very clear to the examiner that you are the second largest or the third largest or the leader with regard to the size of your business. So likewise, it's important to compare wherever relevant with competition. It's important to compare against 2 years ago to show where your company stands. It's also important that you mention the sources from where you're getting your information. So as per the website of Cinnamon Grand, the company has 3 main lines of business. There are hotel rooms which are broken down into deluxe, super deluxe and maybe economy or standard. You could talk about how their restaurants are broken down into 5 specific restaurants, and you could also mention that 30% of their business, as per the interview with marketing manager, comes out of banquet sales, which includes the weddings, which is another 25%, and other corporate events like product launches, etc. And you have to be very specific. So you can give certain examples of percentage of revenue coming out of these products. At the same time, you could also, it's important to inform from where are you getting this information. Now the most marks for this podcast come from the digital technologies used by this company. That's what's special about the digital marketing podcast. So this is where you have to really specify that the company currently uses technologies such as X, Y, and Z. Say if you say the company uses a website, it's important to highlight, are they using it for information or are they using it for e-commerce? If it's for e-commerce, how much of business in rupee value comes from e-commerce? How much of hotel bookings, room bookings, event bookings happen from that? So you need to give some statistics with the source where you're getting the information. Secondly, if it's the overall performance of the website, you could also inform, show what are the traffic levels, any statistics that is of the website. Same for Facebook, same for Twitter, same for any other digital platform such as their blog. If they're not using some of these technologies, you should say that these type of technologies are currently not used. And you can even compare if a competitor uses it briefly, but mainly you can focus on your company and say Cinnamon Lakeside today uses a website extensively. Their Facebook page is 5,000 fans and this is what happens there, and they're using Twitter but very infrequently, and that type of clear profiling has to happen. If I were you, at the end of this presentation, end of this podcast, I will summarize the key points. In summary, Cinnamon Lakeside